Philippine Mining Club and the Philippine Infrastructure and Construction Club are professional networking forums bringing industries together and creating opportunities for the Philippine mining and infrastructure and construction industries. Networking is about giving, not taking. It is about forming trust and helping one another toward mutual goals, regularly engaging with your contacts, and finding opportunities to strengthen relationships. Networking is a great opportunity to exchange best practice knowledge, learn about the business techniques of your peers, and stay abreast of the latest industry developments. Opportunities like partnerships, invitations to events, introductions, and giving talks and presentations bring challenges that benefit and feed your career, professional development, and personal interests. Gaining the advice of experienced peers is an important benefit of networking.
Digital engineering is about connecting the present with the future, the digital world with the physical, connecting possibility with reality. Most of all, it's about bringing value to our clients. The projects we work on are exciting and will impact the future of Sydney for years to come, so getting the best outcome calls for working in a smarter way. We aim to have a partnership with our clients. It's not about building something and walking away. It's thinking about an end-to-end solution. What needs can we foresee and how can we put in place a reliable process now that will keep adding value in future? GHD is pioneering workflows which we expect will become industry standards in future. Digital models are built and stored in the cloud for always-on access to teams around the globe. Workflows assign tasks to people, set deadlines and track costs against a work breakdown structure. Multiple disciplines review a federated model at the same time, resulting in better projects that are coordinated, cost-effective, and developed with stakeholder investment in mind. The transparency this offers our clients is extremely powerful in fostering trust and communication. Taking a measure twice, cut once approach saves millions across planning and construction. Changes to a digital model are faster and provide a better coordinated design for our clients. Data and project priorities are thus what drive decision making. Ultimately, technology is just an enabler for the inspiration that comes from people, and it's the fresh thinking of our staff that we want to support. We want to unlock notions of what's possible and challenge the expectations of what's an acceptable standard. It's a great way for young people starting out in their careers to contribute because the model shows you what will be in lifelike detail. In the same way, it connects clients dynamically with their future project because they can see and interact with it in real time.
Welcome to the second webinar in our Philippine Infrastructure and Construction Club, the PICC series, and we're extremely fortunate to have today Mr. Jocot del Dios, Chief Executive Officer of Prime BMD, along with Mr. Jeff Gallus, Director of Operations of Prime BMD, as our speakers today. My name is Kevin Lewis, and I hope you all have an enjoyable, informative time with us today. And just before I introduce my colleague, Mr. Roger Dimmel, who will take you further on today, I would like to mention and thank our valued marketing partners, for without these companies' assistance, the webinars would not be possible. Our supporting partners are Ms. David Brown Santasola, Atty Geophysical Consultants, Ollie Consulting Group, and First Metro Securities. Our foundation partners, Site Skills Training. Site Skills Training offer international recruitment and workforce solutions to companies in the construction, mining and processing and oil and gas industries. Our principal partner is Prime BMD. Prime BMD offer to their clients services for major infrastructure projects throughout the Philippines and Southeast Asia. Expertise, experience and resources are applied across the industry sectors to transport, water, ports, resources, and the energy sector. GHD. GHD has had a permanent presence in the Philippines since 1998 with over 600 professional staff spread across 3 cities in the Philippines. Their main office is in Makati City, and the 2 branches now in Cebu City and Quezon City, focused on creating lasting community benefits. GHD leverages on its connected global network of over 10,000 employees to provide engineering and environmental management services to key partners in the energy and resources sectors. The PICC is also affiliated with the Lighthouse Club Manila, ANSCHAM, the Australian New Zealand Chamber of Commerce, and the Philippine Mining Club. Our media partner, of course, is the Philippine Resources and Construction Journal. Now, ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to hand you over to my colleague, Mr. Roger Dimmel, who will introduce you to today's EMCC, and I thank you very much for your time this morning.
Thanks, Kevin. Ladies and gentlemen, may I say a few words about our MC today. Attorney Patricia Bunye is a senior partner and the deputy managing partner for administration of Cruz, Marcelo, and Tena Francia. She heads its mining and natural resource department and the energy practice group. She is also a partner in the intellectual property development. She is a past president of the Licensing Executive Society International, or LESI, from 2016 to 2017, the first Filipino and Southeast Asian to hold the position. She is also founding president of DEWATA, Women in Resource Development, Inc., a non-governmental organization that advocates responsible development of the Philippines' wealth in resources. She is an active member of the Chamber of Mines of the Philippines Legal Committee and is a columnist in the Philippine Resource Journal. She is in the 2020, 2019, and 2018 lists of the Philippines' top 100 lawyers and has been cited by various international law research publications such as Chambers, Legal 500, Asia law, among many others. Ladies and gentlemen, I will now hand you over to our MC, Attorney Patricia Bunye.
Thank you very much, Roger, for the kind introduction. I am delighted to be with all of you this afternoon. And before I introduce our speakers, I wish to highlight the following. First, we will be issuing certificates of attendance to today's participants. You can request them from Ms. Joan Falcotella. And second, for your questions addressed to our speakers, please type them in the Q&A or chat box at the bottom of the screen. I will read them out to our speakers after their respective presentations during the Q&A. And we will hold the Q&A after both our speakers have made their presentations. Before we have the main presentations, I now have the pleasure of introducing Mr. Sandy Gilles for our stock market update. Mr. Gilles is a financial analyst working to educate clients of the stockbroker firm First Metro Securities. He used to teach finance in college for undergraduates and for Masters of Business Administration students. Ladies and gentlemen, I now present to you our speaker, Mr. Sandy Gilles.
Oh, thank you very much, Attorney P.O. Bunye. I will now proceed to present the PowerPoint. And it's about the investment opportunities in infrastructure. And we are happy to be able to learn more today about Prime BMD. And the personalities involved are Mr. Ricky Razon and Mr. Mick Power. Ricky Razon is the director and chairman, and Mr. Mick Power is the founder of BMD Constructions. He also holds the Order of Australia medal. Now, BMD Group is a private company. If you wish to invest in their shares, I believe it can be done by invitation. And then, but nevertheless, I think that their market value must be rising over time because, in general, the construction sector has been receiving benefits from the economic managers of Australia. They have been pumping money into the economy to counteract the drag of COVID. And on the Australian Stock Exchange, construction stocks are moving up thanks to a 50 billion of assistance. And there are two construction stocks which have doubled in the past 6 months. The glass supplier, Metro Performance Glass, and the truck trailer manufacturer, Maxi Trans, on the ASX. In 2020, there were actually winners due to the budget increases, and the beneficiaries were construction, cybersecurity, and defense technology. One of the top performers among the construction stocks on the Australian Stock Exchange is RDG, which went up 135%. Meanwhile, here in the Philippines, we have Ricky Razon with the International Container Terminal Services and also Bloomberry Resorts and Hotels. And I'd like to briefly comment that they are good investment opportunities. ICTSI was 21 pesos per share back in 2009. It's now 121. That makes it approximately a rising stock that has been moving up approximately 16% a year for the past 12 years. Meaning, if it started at 21 and it's now 121, that means it multiplied times 5.8. And over 12 years, that translates to 16% gains year after year for 12 years. Meanwhile, the other stock has had cycles of good and bad news. But I think that it's all coming to a head because in a matter of months, we will find out whether there is serious good news, I hope so, or bad news, I hope not, which will determine the future directions of the price for Bloomberry Resorts. I suggest to buy now because if there is good news, then the up move can be substantial from perhaps 7.8 to a price of 16 in about 1 or 2 years' time. Meanwhile, looking now at the entire stock market, there are the top 30 stocks, which are very representative of the other 240 stocks on the Philippine Stock Exchange. And how have they been doing? Well, since the year 2009, they were at 2,000 points on the index. The index is a number that started at 100 points in the 1970s. So therefore, by year 2009, if they are at 2,000 points, it means that they are 20 times larger than in the 1970s. And recently, they traded at 7,000 points. Therefore, 7,000 divided by 2,000 makes it 3.5 times larger than year 2009. And I'm thinking that it's been up, it's been down in the past 2 years, but up since the past 11 years. So I'm thinking that it's been moving up 8.7% per year. And if we project it into the future, if these trends continue, we will see index points 12,560. Therefore, a growth of 8.7% for money, which is better than the bank account. Although, of course, all stock markets are uncertain. Meanwhile, in other news, Ricky Razon is also involved in the utility called Manila Water. He owns 25% of the shares. How has this stock been faring? Up and down. So it was in 2006, it was at 6 pesos per share. It reached a high of 40 pesos per share because it is an essential service and everybody needs water. And it did modernize its systems, but it had difficulty in collecting because of difficulties in enforcing a contract. But then I think they're about to resolve those difficulties. So from the current level of 15 pesos per share, I suspect that the coast is clear for it to return to 40 over the next few years, as long as they keep on providing high quality water to all the communities which are very thirsty in Metro Manila. So it's going to be also a good long-term opportunity in pesos. Now, what about US dollar investments? Well, there are many investment infrastructure projects around the world which involve listed companies. If the companies are listed, then anyone can buy the shares. And aside from buying the shares can be found in investment funds, which are easier to buy because they are like a bunch of funds, a bunch of shares all put together by a wise expert. And a good example of this would be the Global X Infrastructure Development ETF. The ETF stands for Exchange Traded Fund. It's a mutual fund that you can buy simply by going to their office, or no need to go to their office, just go to the stock exchange and look for the symbol PAVE, and then that allows you to buy Global X fund by the click of a button. And it went up 27% over the past 12 months. Quite good, best in the world. Plus, it gives a dividend of 0.42% in addition. The stocks that they invest in include Deere and Company, Emerson Electric, and Sempra Energy. These three did particularly well the past year. And people might be wondering, did any stock do well last year? Well, this one did. It was moving up from $100 per share to $300 per share. If trends continue, it might be moving way above 350. And then this one is Emerson Electric, from $40 per share to 80 plus, and generally on an upswing, electric products. Then the third one is Sempra Energy, which had a rocky 2020, but it's picking up the pieces, and because demand for energy is strong, then we could see the share price continuing to rise again after that rocky 2020. Now, the second best infrastructure fund was the iShares, and it went up 14%. They invested in railroads and utilities, materials, and construction companies. So these are, if you choose the right fund, then you could make 14% on the price, plus 1.96% on the dividend yield, or the cash dividends. Now, where to find stockbrokers? I would refer you to Google or Investopedia. They can compare and contrast the brokers that will allow you to buy US dollar funds or US dollar stocks. Thank you very much for listening. This has been Sandy Gilles speaking from the Wawa Dam. Just kidding. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. And I hope we learn a lot more about how the needs of the countries for drinking water is being served. Good day.
Thank you very much, Sandy, for your very informative presentation. Sandy never fails to demystify the stock market, and today he has done a great job of setting the stage for our main speakers by helping us understand more about the companies and the personalities involved in the project. So to speak to us today on the topic Prime Infra BMD, the Wawa Weir 2 project, Wawa JVCo, Future Water Security for Manila, we have two gentlemen, Mr. Jocot de Dios, the Chief Executive Officer of Prime BMD, and Mr. Jeff Gallus, Director for Operations of Prime BMD. First, I will introduce Mr. JV Emmanuel A. de Dios. Jocot has nearly 3 decades of experience in the energy and infrastructure sectors. Prior to joining Prime Metro BMD, Jocot was CEO of GE Philippines for over 8 years. He also managed GE's government affairs team for Asia Pacific. He moved from Nido Petroleum Limited, an Australian oil and gas company, where he was managing director from 2008 to 2012. He previously served as Undersecretary of the Philippine Department of Energy for 3 years, where he led the planning and downstream oil bureaus, and was then subsequently appointed as chairman of the PNOC Exploration Corporation. He brings to the company a wealth of experience and insight into the energy and infrastructure sectors, coupled with a keen understanding of the commercial and legal dynamics of doing business in the Philippines and within Southeast Asia. His exposure to local and regional infrastructure players boosts the company's move to expand its current portfolio and contribute to nation building. He is a lawyer by training, having graduated from the Ateneo School of Law in 1990 with a Bachelor of Laws degree and the Harvard Law School for his Master of Laws degree in 1994. He sits on the boards of publicly listed Phoenix Petroleum Philippines Incorporated and Oriental Petroleum and Minerals Corporation, and is an active mentor in Endeavor Philippines. He previously served as a member of the board of the AmCham in the Philippines. Next, we have Mr. Jeff Gallus, Director of Operations. Jeff has been an executive officer of BMD Constructions for the past 14 years, and since moving to the Philippines, has taken up the role of Chief Executive Officer of Prime BMD, and now the Director for Operations. He has over 25 years of experience in the construction industry in Australia, specializing in the delivery of road, rail, port, and airport infrastructure projects. Jeff's career is characterized by collaboration, teamwork, and throughout his career, Jeff's collaborative nature comes to the fore in his commitment to all sectors of the industry in which BMD, now Prime BMD, operates. He brings selfless enthusiasm to his role as Director for Operations, providing strong and positive leadership to a committed team, and promotes the Prime BMD brand of contracting to consistently deliver hassle-free outcomes. He is a fellow of the Institute of Engineers Australia, a chartered professional engineer in leadership and management, and a registered APEC engineer, and holds a graduate certificate from the Australian Institute of Company Directors. He received his bachelor's degree in civil engineering from the University of Queensland in 1993. We also have on hand as a technical support panelist, Mr. Gisoue Pani, Technical Director of Prime BMD. Let us now first welcome Mr. Jocot de Dios.
Thank you, Patricia, for the kind introduction, and thank you very much for having Prime BMD as a speaker resource this afternoon. I'd like to just welcome and wish all the participants good afternoon this Friday, end of the week. So hopefully we head into the weekend, nourished by some of the things that we'd like to share. Obviously, a very very important project. My role this afternoon is quite simple. I'll just simply introduce the company and then hand it over to Jeff and then Josh, who will talk about the intricacies of the particular project that we have highlighted this afternoon. So, you know, Prime Metro BMD Corporation is really it's a young corporation, but obviously with very mature parents. No, it's a joint venture between Prime Metro Infrastructure Holdings Corporation and the BMD Group of Australia. BMD has over 40 years of building legacy, solid experience in the industry. No, on the other hand, Prime Metro Line Infrastructure Holdings is part of the Enrique Razon Group. And that group is, I guess, bannered, as earlier mentioned by Sandy, by ICTSI and Bloomberry. ICTSI has been in service for 32 years in 32 terminals, actually, about 32 terminals in 19 countries. And the company moves about 10 million TEUs a year. So it's obviously a global player. Homegrown but global in terms of the interest in the port space. It has an infrastructure arm, Prime Metro Line Infrastructure Holdings Corporation, which is venturing into the infrastructure space, and that is the partner of BMD. BMD, as I mentioned, has 40 years of legacy, a solid backbone in terms of the technical, I guess, offering that they provide to the company. So really, we are a AAA pickup licensed heavy civil and industrial contractor, focusing on projects that matter for the country, obviously also for private and government players. What we think we offer to the country is that we have a local sort of a flavor, no, a global bent, and that's contributed by BMD. With all the legacy projects that they've brought forth in Australia and elsewhere, and then local, I guess, nuanced understanding of the Philippine business and infrastructure sectors in the Philippines, no, but very alive to the international way of doing business. Now, if you look at company structure, you will see that Prime BMD has a few subsidiaries under its belt, no. BMD Constructions is actually the heavy infrastructure construction group. Prime BMD falls under that. And we have both the industrial and the international lines of business. Empower is also a technical services provider that caters to a lot of the design requirements of the customers of the BMD group as well as Prime BMD. You have JMAC, which focuses on landscape development and similar sorts of services in Australia. Urbex, which is focused on commercial, residential developments as well. And you have BMD Urban, differentiated from BMD Constructions, which really pays attention to industrial and commercial construction activity. So it has a hefty, I guess, qualifications, so to speak. In fact, the history, we're a young company, about 4 years old in the Philippines, but the history of the joining together of both companies has its genesis in the Victoria International Container Port in Australia, where BMD had actually built for the Razon Group, ICTSI, the port there. And so there was sort of a meeting of the minds, and they came together and formed this joint venture. So since 2017, we've been in existence. We invest heavily in our people. Our people are our greatest assets. We actually have wide experience both locally and internationally amongst the team. We look and we're hungry for civil infrastructure projects and industrial projects for our many clients. And obviously, we have our base in Luzon. We're looking at expansions in the Visayas and Mindanao as we look at projects. And it's timely, given obviously the last year, or just over a year of the pandemic, where infrastructure is seen, at least in the Philippines, for sure, seen to drive economic activity and growth, given how the pandemic has affected economies around the world. So I think we're right in that sweet spot for us to be able to take advantage of this. We have values that we cherish. Actually, we pay attention to safety, zero harm. But at the same time, we'd like to be able to think ourselves being able to deliver high quality projects, very thorough, very systematic, merging the Western side of our systems together with the local flavor to meet client expectations. And that, I think, is a testament to the ability for our ability to navigate through the difficult, business environment or challenging business environment in the Philippines. And obviously, we build a reputation project by project. Every success to us adds to that, local a track record that we'd like to foster, obviously drawing from the wider capabilities of the BMD group and also from the expertise and the market knowledge of the Prime Infrastructure Group. Okay, so we go to the next slide. I mentioned we have a path. If we can transfer the next slide, Jeff. Yeah, so let me stop there. Before I just hand it over to Jeff, it's really something that it's an exciting time to be in this space. It's a dynamic space despite the number of players, the number of legacy players. I think what you need in a country that's trying to grow ahead of its neighbors in Southeast Asia in terms of your GDP, in terms of infrastructure growth, in terms of attracting foreign investments, is the ability to be as flexible as possible and aggressive. And I think that's what we bring to the table as Prime BMD. So I'll hand it over to Jeff. And Jeff, maybe you can talk about our commitment to zero harm and some of the business lines that we are involved in.
Yep, thank you, Jocot. Good afternoon to all our participants this afternoon. Thank you also to the PICC for the opportunity to discuss Prime BMD and introduce the business, but more importantly, talk about the Wawa bulk water project that we're currently engaged in. So it's a pleasure to join you this afternoon. I'm actually in Brisbane at the moment, having recently relocated from the Philippines, but very much involved in the business and really looking forward to the continued growth of Prime BMD. So as Jocot mentioned, Prime BMD has a very strong zero harm policy. What that means is that we value each of our people. We deliver in terms of our commitment to safety, and we deliver in terms of our commitment to environmental management. So I guess core to that is two aspects. And when we came out and set up the business in early 2017, the most fundamental aspect was for us to bring two things. Establish a strong culture that we have established in BMD over the past 40 years, but also to bring our systems. So bring our Western established systems, advanced systems in project management, and to be able to underpin the way in which we delivered projects. And we're very proud to be able to say that we've managed to do that. And our zero harm focus has driven a very strong safety culture throughout our business that we're looking forward to continuing to grow as our business expands within the Philippines. Just one sec. So our capabilities in terms of the market sectors in which we play, port and marine. BMD has a very strong history in port and marine sector. We've built a number of ports throughout Australia, and we've been able to, again, bring that expertise to the Philippines with Prime BMD. Our largest project delivered to date, which I'll talk about shortly, is in fact for ICTSI at the MICT expansion of Berth 7. And we've got a particular strength in that we're able to self-perform and deliver the majority of the works, including the interface between the marine structure and the land-based structure. So it's quite a complex and diverse portfolio of scope that we're able to deliver. Land development, we're currently engaged in a project for Robinson's Land Corporation now in Porak, and that's fairly typical of the skills and expertise that we've also developed in Australia through our land development sector and our involvement in broadacre subdivision. And we look to expand that further throughout Luzon and the balance of the Philippines also. Rail, we have a strong history again. We've just delivered the largest rail project to date in Australia being the Inland Rail, which runs for 2,000 kilometres. And we're looking to, again, bring that experience in terms of our rail systems, in terms of our management of the rail scope interface between also live rail and the new infrastructure, and ensure that we can demonstrate our capability in that space. Roads and highways is really our bread and butter. We've built many roads throughout Australia, in fact, over 1,500 projects in our 40-year history. And of course, we've brought a strong skill base to the Philippines, and we've been able to establish a very loyal and diverse workforce that understands our systems and has a strong skill set in delivering our roads and highways throughout the Philippines also. Energy, it's an emerging market. We have a strong history through renewable energy in particular, and we look forward to the uptake of solar and I guess the reinvigoration of wind projects throughout the Philippines so that we can demonstrate our capability there. Water systems, it's a growing revenue stream in all countries at the moment, particularly in the Philippines, in the bulk water space, in the water treatment sector, and in the sewage treatment space. And we have quite an extensive history operating in some strategic partnerships in that space where Prime BMD will deliver the civil infrastructure works, and we'll partner with a technical specialist to deliver that scope in terms of the systems design and taking, of course, the process risk and ensuring that we deliver what we say we can deliver in terms of water quality. Airports, again, a rich history for BMD in Australia, and we have developed some very specific work methodologies that have enabled us to complete many projects here to a very high standard. So we're looking to actually bring our people and our resource in terms of plant equipment, specialised equipment, to the Philippines also to help us with our expansion there. And underground, underground's one of our new market ventures in the Philippines. We've got a very strong technical background within the business, both in Australia and even more so perhaps in the Philippines, with some of our engineering specialists within the team. And we're looking to expand that business actively now throughout the Philippines to take advantage of what is, I guess, a desperate need to continue to increase the bulk water capacity within the market. Some of the completed projects of BMD in Australia, just to give you a flavour of what we do. This is the Legacy Way Tunnel. This was a joint venture partnership in Brisbane approximately 10 years ago between BMD, Acciona and Gallus. And it was a 4.6 kilometre long, twin 12.2 metre diameter road tunnel beneath the city of Brisbane. So it was a very unique project. At the time, it actually established the world record in tunnelling, achieving 47 metres per day as average. So it was a very successful project and one that I guess really established BMD as a top tier contractor within the market in Australia. The SafeLink Alliance project, which is the Ipswich motorway upgrade, which is just west of Brisbane. This project was 824 million Australian dollars in value. It was a very large project and an alliance, so it's a collaborative framework model where the owner of the project, the employer, has a risk-sharing arrangement with the contractor and the designer, and you're very much all in it together and delivering and working in a collaborative fashion to ensure that all delays can be mitigated, that all necessary permits.
Mary.
You there? Yeah. So, yeah, again, pretty typical of the projects, the road projects that we have in terms of our capacity here in Australia. And again, typical of what we would deliver in the Philippines. And this is just a photograph of our most recently completed airport project here in Brisbane, which is the new parallel runway. So it's a new runway for the Brisbane airport, significant amount of bulk earthworks and heavy duty pavements for the actual construction of the runway and taxiways. And it's within this project that we developed our own special technology to ensure that we could meet the specification requirements and deliver in terms of time and cost to the client. Just a quick snapshot of some of the prime BMD completed projects. I mentioned it before, but the Berth 7 Southern Yard extension is our largest project completed to date on behalf of ICTSI. So we were contracted in September 2018. The project was delivered in approximately 2 years and was 3.1 billion in contract value. So a very successful project involving reclamation works, dredging, approximate 360,000 cubic metres of lahar sand was brought in from Zambalis to backfill behind the bulkhead wall. We had a significant amount of piling works, crane rail beams, tiebacks for sheet pile walls to ensure the stability of the bulkhead wall, and a large section of heavy duty pavements with a paver topping throughout the container hardstand area. So, fairly typical of the port infrastructure work that we have in-house capability to deliver, not only in the Philippines, but throughout the ASEAN region also. The MICT CFS1 container yard. So this is a 19,000 square metre concrete pavement and warehousing for expansion at MICT. And this was actually the first project that we delivered when we came to the Philippines as a general contractor. So again, fairly typical of our skill set in terms of self-performing all of our concrete work and our building work scope as well. The NGAC Utilities contract, this project we're very proud of. We delivered this for the Basis Conversion Development Authority and Alloy MTD at the National Government Administration Centre. So this was, of course, part of the SEA Games and was on a very tight time frame. And we delivered all of the underground services throughout the facility. So that included sewer, water, electrical, telecoms, and all the associated infrastructure for that. So a very successful project that we're very proud to have been involved in. And just lastly, we look at the Solaire North Hotel and Casino. So this is currently under construction in Vertus North, Quezon City. So it's a new hotel and casino for Solaire. This is a joint venture partnership that we have in place with DMCI on a 50-50 basis. And we're currently progressing very well on the project. Approximately 30% complete, so we've got a fair way to go, but we're making good progress, and certainly delivering in terms of what we would set as our standards in regards to safety and quality. So a project that we're very proud of at the moment. I'd just like to now introduce you and move tact over into the Wawa bulk water supply project. So this will give you just an outline and an overall understanding of the scope of the project. And then we're going to then move from the video, and I'll ask Josh, who's with us today, and he's a technical director from Prime BMD. I'll ask him to then present the design aspects and challenges that we've faced and how we've overcome those. And then I'll talk about the construction activity and where we are currently.
How do you build a lasting legacy? Is it by building the highest of structures? Or by building the largest? Or is it by helping build better lives and opportunities? Since we started in 2017, we at Prime Metroline Infrastructure Corporation, or Prime Infra, aim to build relevant structures that are not only the best of their kind, but structures that will improve lives and economies. With our subsidiaries, Wawa Joint Venture Company, Prime BMD, and Prime Power, we erect structures that address economic and social needs. Structures that are built on a foundation of trust, collaboration, tenacity, passion, and pioneering. In other words, infrastructure that matters. Water, a basic human need. To address the recurring water shortage in Metro Manila, Prime Infra partnered with San Lorenzo Ruiz Builders and Developers Group, Inc. to help solve this basic need of a growing population. the Wawa Bulk Water Supply Project. Once completed, this project will boost Manila Water's current supply from Angat Dam of 1.5 billion liters per day by 30%, serving over 500,000 households in the greater Manila area. The project site is 7 kilometers upstream of the Upper Wawa Dam in Rodriguez, Rizal, in Tayabasan, Antipolo City, where a multi-basin system will be constructed. Once completed, the operation will look as such. 2 to 3 basins will supply 80 million liters per day into Manila Water's Kalawish treatment plant through a kilometer-long access road. Each basin contributing somewhere between 20 to 40 million liters per day. By 2025, we envision a revitalized Upper Wawa Dam, where water will be pumped into the treatment plant through a parallel pipeline in the same access road as that of Basin Number 1. With this project, we hope to build a more secure future for Manila dwellers for the next 5 to 10 years by having a stable water supply. We mean it when we say, we commit, we deliver. So we're pulling all the stops with the help of Prime Metro BMD Corporation, or Prime BMD. This is our joint venture with Australia's renowned BMD Group that owns an impressive number of companies engaged in engineering design, construction, and land development across various sectors. Prime BMD was established in the Philippines in 2017 with a shared mission of shaping the country's infrastructure and the lives around it, creating opportunities for Filipinos. Prime BMD is proud to be a trusted name in marine and civil infrastructure, from building and expanding jetties to constructing and repairing new roads and causeways. But what really sets Prime BMD apart is the trust we have built over the years with our zero harm policy, because our business is our people. Moreover, we are committed not only to ensure the safety of our own workforce, but also that of the environment and the communities we work in. We focus our attention on areas requiring the most support and foster the right culture to create sustainability in the communities we serve. We build more than infrastructure. We build a legacy of integrity, commitment, and global relevance. One brick at a time.
Okay, thank you, Joe. So I'd just like to now introduce Josh Pani, who's our technical director. He's been heavily involved in the design management for the project since the time of tender, and he's going to take us through some of the design challenges and optimizations that we've adopted to ensure that we can meet the time requirements of the project and also provide the most efficient design possible. Thank you, Josh.
Thank you very much, Jeff. We are going to now enter into some more technical details of the project. Slide. So Wawa JV is, as we indicated, is developing for Metro Manila the Wawa Bulk Water Supply Project. The project site, Upper Wawa Dam and the Tayabasan Weir number 2 are located within the municipality of Rodriguez in the city of Antipolo, both in the province of Rizal. The project proposed to address both Metro Manila water demand and flood concern to the nearby villages and population. The project has two major components. One is the Taybasan Weir 2 project, which is actually ongoing, and the Upper Wawa Dam, both with an independent pump station and connected to the future Manila water treatment plant that is going to be built in the vicinity of Weir number 2. Jeff, I don't know if you can start the presentation for me. So the back one slide. So the Taybasan Weir number 2, which we can see on the right side of the scheme, will address the immediate need for water by providing 80 million liters a day by September 2022, while Upper Wawa Dam, which we can see on the left side of the scheme, once completed in 25, will provide 518 million liters a day of water. Aside from the water supply, it is proposed to have flood mitigation components in the project. During heavy rainfall, it will both dams, they will act as flood mitigation structure that can hold stormwater runoff from the Wawa River and the Taybasan River and release it in a regulated way so that will not cause severe flooding downstream of the main Upper Wawa Dam. We have approached this project with Wawa JV at the end of 2019, where still the contract scheme between construction only or engineering and procurement and constructions contract was still under evaluation. Wawa JV and their design consultant at that time, Tractable, prepared all the tender documents and tender design drawing, and a decision for an EPC contract was then taken. So Prime BMD, since from the beginning of the tender stage, engaged an international engineering and design firm, Lombardi, which is from Switzerland, to provide Prime BMD the full service of value engineering options during tender stage, and then a full detailed engineering design development during the construction phase, which we are where we are now. So as we can see on this slide, the location of the Weir number 2 with the access road and the conveyance pipeline leading to the future water treatment plant, which can be seen on the upper left part of the slide. Our scope of work, next slide please, Jeff, is the design and construction of concrete weir with a full supply level of 159.5, equipped with a free weir board and a downstream roller bucket basing to safely pass the design flood. A pumping station is included in our scheme in order to provide the 80 million liters a day required by the client. All the required fittings and equipment, hydromechanical and electrical and mechanical, are included in our scope of work, including the medium voltage transmission line. The conveyance pipeline, which is more or less 650 meters long, is also included, together with the temporary access road and the installation of all the other components required for the project. So as soon as we started reviewing the tender design concept proposed by the client, we have immediately found some challenging situation, which are the conventional concrete weir arrangement proposed by the client in the tender design, due to the complexity of the design, was not was taken more than 20 months for construction, divided into different wet seasons. Several requirements under the employer requirement require optimization from the EPC contractor for saving and cost perspective. The arrangement proposed in tender is not consistent with the design life indicated by the client, which is 10 years design life and 5 years operational life. We found risky and costly conventional two-stage river diversion scheme proposed in tender by the client. And the access road design was, we believe, was a little bit over-designed, and we did some optimization also on that one. So considering these three findings, already on an early stage we ran together with our EPC designers a series of value engineering activities and proposals in order to reduce cost and program duration. We develop a river diversion plan that relies on dry season diversion only, with wet season periodic overtopping in case of emergency of the Weir number 2, and the use of RCC material and cofferdams instead of the gabions proposed at the beginning by the consultant. Change of the Weir construction from conventionally vibrated concrete to hard fill RCC with an impermeable upstream geomembrane, leading to a slightly more concrete volume, but considering that RCC has a lower cementitious content, the construction and operation is simpler and faster. We modified the access road standards to a single line with adequate running surface and cross drainages with inclusion of passing bays for heavy equipment. We replaced the tender design proposed cast in situ concrete pump tower, originally planned to be built on the river, which requires significant additional excavation, with a different type of pump station. Is a dry pump station, which is now located under 50 meters downstream of the Weir. This change is giving several benefits to the project during construction phase and the operational and maintenance period for the client. Also, the relocation of the pump station was a way to take the pump station from the critical path of the project, with several improvements in the schedule of work as well. Next slide. Here we can see our new RCC Weir, located on the east side, and 150 meters downstream the pump station on top of the left bank. Next slide. Next, Jeff.
Yep.
As indicated before, the tender diversion scheme was showing almost a full river closure and the construction of a half conventional concrete dam on the left abutment. And please next. And another river diversion was then required for the construction of the remaining half of the structure. Major risk of this type of diversion are related to the rainy season, where the flow level of the rivers, in case of overtopping of the cofferdam, the water can seriously damage equipment, formwork, and steel reinforcement on the construction area, not mentioning also the risk of our personnel. Our optimized scheme, please, Jeff. Our optimized scheme consists on the construction of a longitudinal cofferdam. Next. On the left bank edge, leaving sufficient space to the riverbed and the water to flow. And next one, the construction of a concrete diversion channel capable to divert the water during all dry season, so that by building the upstream and downstream cofferdam, next slide, in RCC, we can have a full area free of water in order to construct entirely our RCC way, including the activity of rock consolidation works and grouting carting. Next one. Coming back to the original design, as indicated before, the CVC we are considered in the tender was very complex, and this type of structure and the seasonal dry and wet weather periods was leading to a much longer execution period than they require 19 to 20 months indicated by the client. Complexity of the tender CVC Weir can be also appreciated by this front view detail, where all the internal grouting galleries are shown. The time required for this activity was very time consuming. So our RCC dams, which can be seen now, does not require internal galleries for grouting, since these activities safely performed through the upstream plinth in an open air environment before starting of the RCC placement. And next, the redesign of the RCC Weir does not require upstream formworks and a very limited quantity of steel reinforcement on the OG crest and lateral wall, which has been drastically reduced. So this also reduces time and cost related activity. Next slide, please. This is the original pump station design proposed by the client, which was located upstream of the Weir, require a mass excavation to be performed at the same time of the left abutment of the Weir. To work on the foundation on a dry condition for this type of structure, an additional cofferdam was supposed to be constructed to prevent the river inflows. The space needed for the control building also require extensive excavation with an unfavorable environmental impact, considering an almost self-standing concrete tower structure. Also, some additional analysis and a detailed analysis of the seismic was also required. We change, please, next slide. The pump station designed by Prime BMD and Lombardi show a completely dry configuration on the left bank, so it's safe from any type of flood condition, with the installation of 3 axially split casing pumps instead of the submersible pumps indicated in the tender drawing. The pumps are now connected by the Weir by an intake pipeline integrated in the face of the Weir structure. The third pump included in our scheme is going to be used only when maintenance on pump number 1 or number 2 is required. Okay. Regarding the road, the tender design considered at the beginning a dual line carriageway. After evaluation of the required works during operation and maintenance for the client, the road has been redesigned as a single line with additional turning points. We can see on the next line. On the new design, we have optimized excavation volumes and faster, having then at the end a faster execution time. Next. Okay, this is an example of a similar hard fill Weir constructed in the Philippines, with where we can see the conventional downstream steps in the downstream face of the Weir itself. This is very similar to the project we are doing in Weir number 2. And hard-fill placement shown on this picture is to show that the conventional excavating equipment can be used for placing the hard-fill there, and with standard dozer rollers and trucks to make the operation more simple and faster. The compaction of the upstream face of the hard-fill Weir is achieved, please next slide, by a customized compacting plate mounted on a small excavator. And at the end of when we reach the final elevation of the Weir, we will place an upstream geomembrane to the entire face in order to guarantee the final permeability for the entire design life and operational life of the structure. We have already on board all those equipment to be used. This is the area of the longitudinal cofferdam ongoing, with impermeable membrane also to prevent water flows inside the cofferdam in order to start the diversion channel as a first phase of the project.
Thank you, Josh.
You're very welcome.
So I'm just going to give a brief update in relation to our construction progress. So I'll talk about some of the mobilisation challenges that we've had, some of the weather that we've also had during the period from when we first took on or first assigned the contract in early July, with mobilisation to site really effectively starting in September, and then obviously coming into quite an extreme wet weather period. I'll talk about our earthworks methodology, the RCC supply, and we'll have a look at some of our current suppliers and subcontractors. Hang on one sec, frozen. Okay, so as you can see, I mean, obviously the existing roads into the site are a challenge in that, number one, it's obviously very constrained in terms of the width. So we're going through the local barangay, we're coming down through the Kasili village, which is very tight in terms of the width of the road. So it's almost impossible to actually float large machinery in. But then having got to the end of the sealed road, we then have approximately 3 kilometres of dirt access track, which is currently being upgraded. But due to the weather that we've had in this period, we've suffered a number of slips. So we've actually had to stop work, assist the local contractors and community in excavating bulk material from the road that's actually slipped onto the road. And that's, of course, blocked our access to the weir and created some significant challenges in terms of ongoing slips as well. You can see there, obviously, the mountainous terrain, and we all know what happens in the Philippines when we combine that with the extreme rainfall. You can see some of the boulders that have dislodged from the mountainside. So we're very conscious of that, obviously, and ensuring that when we could get access, that we created some stable slopes so that when we're bringing our people down to the work site each day, that there's no risk of actually being struck by fallen debris or boulders and the like. So that's been one of our primary focuses, and also to help the local community in maintaining access as well, so that they can continue to get to the riverbank, and to also be involved in the project with us. You can see some of the wet weather periods that we have had. Obviously, probably our biggest challenge to date was Typhoon Ulysses. Extraordinary amount of rain inundated the site. The river height itself increased by approximately 5 metres. So it actually overtook our longitudinal cofferdam that we'd just finished a week beforehand. And it washed the majority of that longitudinal cofferdam away. So that was, I guess, a challenge for us at the start of the project. And then we had to then re-establish that cofferdam and ensure that we could, I guess, protect the work site from any further ongoing inundation. You can see there the photos of during the height of the flow from Ulysses. So that is actually on the left here. That's an increase in riverbed height of up to 5 metres. So quite a significant amount of water, as you'd expect, and actually flowing up through our hard stand area adjacent to the site, or adjacent to the weir, where we're storing our batch plant facility in the future, and in fact our compound, fuel tanks and the like. So at that point in time, we were only establishing, and I guess the inundation of water could have had much more serious impacts, but certainly it's an ongoing risk for us and one that we're continuing to manage. We look at some of the earthworks, fairly typical of the steep terrain of the Philippines. You can see here that this is actually the right bank. So when we first came to site, we had some delays in our tree clearing permits. We worked as much as we could in and around the existing vegetation, careful to protect all of the trees. And so we progressed the works to the extent that we could by benching in with excavators. Our excavation itself, the profile's approximately 30% of earth material, so a fairly sort of sandy clay, and then it overlays a very stiff basalt, getting down to a very hard basalt at the base of the weir itself. So our methodology is that we'll strip off the overburden, if you like, and bench into the abutments using conventional excavator and trucks. And then we'll drill into the rock and we'll drill and blast to ensure that we can then free excavate for the channel itself, for the diversion channel, and then of course for the base of the weir. So all of our earthworks is staged in accordance with our overall staging plan, which of course relies on the diversion of the riverbed itself. And yes, we've monitored and changed that as we could to meet the tree clearing schedule that we ended up adopting due to the way in which the permits were obtained. So as Josh mentioned before, we have chosen to go with an RCC dam. So the method is typically used when strength and speed of construction are required, and it also enables the use or reuse of local materials. So it's a much more sustainable solution than your typical conventional concrete method. On this project, we have multiple sources of rock for the material in the RCC itself. So we're looking to use materials from on site where we can. And we'll also be looking to use materials provided by local quarries in the Rizal province. So that's obviously subject to availability and subject to those quarries being back in operation. So in the meantime, we're progressing on with the earthworks. We're setting up for that very important diversion channel, and that will then enable us to open up the work site and ensure that we can get on and start the RCC production for the first stage of the Weir. Just some of our very important suppliers and subcontractors on the project. Of course, we couldn't do what we do without the valued support of our suppliers and subcontractors. On the project, we have JCP Geo Services undertaking the geotechnical investigation. Godel Concrete and Systems Batching Plant, so they'll actually produce the RCC on site. And we have Mag Drills Equipment Corporation with the drilling and blasting. I should also say we've had Nedris on site as well, assisting with earthworks machinery and bulk haulage. So to date, we've had a measured start given the influx of inclement weather and some of the minor permitting issues, but we seem to be getting through that now. And I guess our key critical criteria now is to reach a certain stage of height of the RCC production before the next wet season inundates the work site. Just some photos there of the current progress. So on the left here, we've got the Weir site prior to commencing works. Then you can see the longitudinal cofferdam and the excavation of or benching of the right bank with a haul road down to a spoil area here. And then our first completed longitudinal cofferdam, so which has now been reinstated back in the same position. So that takes us to the end of the presentation. Certainly hope you found it informative, and we're available, of course, to answer any questions that are coming through.
Okay. Thank you very much to Jocot, Jeff, and Josh for your insights, and we will now open the Q&A portion. Questions were sent to us both in the chat and Q&A boxes, so I apologize in advance if the questions will not be asked exactly in the order that they were raised. And the first question will go to Jocot, and there are two aspects to this question. First is, how did the government's decision to name this project as one of the 100 flagship projects benefit the delivery of the program? And the other aspect of the question is that this has been identified by the BOI as one of the 1.25 trillion in investments. And it is seen as one of the projects that the government is looking at to attain economic recovery. So of course, there are implications for job creation and all of that. So would you like to speak to this, Jocot?
Yeah, thank you, Patricia. Well, obviously, we see that with the growing population, Philippine population, and the crowding migration of Filipinos to Metro Manila, Greater Metro Mega Manila, water is a commodity that needs to be addressed. So it was not difficult for the government to see that, ensuring stable, continuous, reliable water supply is a basic, necessity that needs to be looked after. Oftentimes, that I come from the energy sector, and a lot of the issues that come to the fore are really on power, electricity. And only in the last maybe couple of years have we seen that water is not to be taken for granted. So really, this project was conceptualized as part of a flagship project of the government, and the vehicle for doing that was the Build program. So that came naturally for us to get involved in this, and certainly, this is not. I don't envision this to be the only project of its sort that will ensure water security as the population grows, as climate changes, global warming comes and affects the globe. So this is at least one part of the solution, and we're obviously looking at other potential projects that government would want to implement over the next few years. But certainly this is a key project for the delivery of basic water needs. Thank you.
Thank you, Jocot. A related question is whether you already have all the necessary environmental licenses and permits, or are these still in progress? So this question is from Ayako Maruoka.
Yeah, we do have all the permits in question that as part of the question that are needed for this. Certainly, we're very conscious of the regulatory requirements, and so this is something that we are very particular about, particularly since it's up in the Antipolo Rizal area. So yes, all permits have been secured, and obviously we continue to monitor compliance to all necessary conditions attaching to those permits.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. One item that has been in the news is that compared to other projects requiring, the social license to operate, the consent of the indigenous peoples, is that
Yes.
it was not as difficult for this project to obtain the IP consents, and perhaps there were certain best practices that your company employed to be able to do this. Perhaps you would like to share with the audience what you did.
Yeah, well, certainly we are building a structure in an area where you have IPs.
We lost your audio, Jocot.
Can you hear me?
Yes, now we can.
All right. So I guess, the very first thing being sort of visitors to the site where you have IP communities, right, is a question of respect for the IPs. It's simple. Respect for their culture, their values, their traditions, no? And we certainly have to engage them early on, be very respectful. There are, traditions, ceremonies that we have to, join with them in as we try to, seek their, I'd say blessing, but seek their cooperation and engagement in working the site, no? And obviously, goes without saying that we're a responsible company. We try to make sure that we engage the local community by providing them opportunities as well. Given the hardships of life in that part of in the Philippines, and obviously that part of Metro Manila, it's something that we're also attuned to. So there is constant engagement. Obviously, it's never easy. It's never easy at any given time, and we have to make sure that we dedicate substantial effort in understanding what their needs are, what their concerns are, and fortunately we've been able to manage that as we've developed this project. There's no tried and tested. There's really no tried and tested formula or template. The very first thing is really to respect the IPs, listen to them, engage with them, and really try to work within the confines of what's important in terms of their culture and values.
Thank you very much, Jocot. The next question is technical from Mr. Jojo Buena, and I will read it. Since concrete is the primal structure on dams and most damage attacks are due to poor protection from carbonation and water permeability. What type of concrete protection do you prefer in order to prevent premature failure on concrete?
I will reply to the questions. So we have allowed for the installation of an upstream impermeable geomembrane, so our FCC will not be affected by any type of chemical presence in the water in the future in the river and in the future lake. So this has been taken considering also the chemical component of the water and everything related to this matter. So we are fully safe and on this aspect here.
Thank you.
I think just one other point, Josh, that I'm not sure we pointed out is that design life. I think we did at the start, but the design life of Weir 2 is not. It's almost seen as a temporary structure in many ways, intended to provide the initial bulk water provision before the upper Wawa dam before the upper Wawa dam is in place. So it's actually got a design life of 10 years. Josh, is that correct?
That's correct, and operational life of 5 years.
Yeah. So not to say that by any means in terms of the integrity, that membrane itself provides a design life well beyond that. But in terms of the overall design life of the structure and the mass of the structure, it's designed around a 10-year period. So that's somewhat different to a more permanent structure.
Mm-hmm. Okay. The next question is, are you going to optimize the existing Wawa dam, or are you completely building a new dam?
I'll answer that. So currently there will be a new Upper Wawa dam as part of the project. And it's likely as well that that will be roller compacted concrete, although those details are still being resolved currently. It's quite a large structure, and it will actually, I guess, replace the function of the current Upper Wawa dam in terms of the capacity that it provides to the overall system. So it's going to drastically increase that current capacity.
Yeah, the current Wawa dam is already a touristic attraction there, and will remain a tourist attraction still.
Yeah.
Okay. The next question is from Jesse Balboa. When is the start of your concreting and tunneling works?
Okay, Jesse, we don't have any more tunnel works. We are using open channel diversion structure. And in Weir number 2, the first concrete is planned to start next month. Conventional concrete works.
All right. The next question is from Heathcliff Lanas Jr. Are all river diversion done using open excavation method? Soil softening is a great challenge and silts environmentally concerning. Any plan of diversion via tunneling?
We ran a full geotechnical investigation campaign, and considering the type of rock found on the abutment of both dam and Weir, we have decided that it is more safe and more faster to build an open channel diversion structure. We do have still open cut excavation, but we have allowed for all the support system in order to keep it stable while we are working in the dam foundation.
Okay.
Yeah, and just to add as well, in terms of environmental management, we have downstream controls in place: silt curtains, sedimentation fences. We have dispersion basins, so we're controlling the way in which when we do have a rainfall event, the way in which the discharge leaves the site, and we're able to capture all sediments.
Okay. I think the next two questions are related. First, from Richard Lerenas, will the project have an impact on the growing concerns of heavy flooding in Rizal, Marikina, and adjacent areas? And the other question is from Bernardo Barcelona. There were complaints by the people of Apia in Tayabasan way back in 2017 to 2018, who were afraid that they would have to be relocated because of the damming of Tayabasan River. Has this issue been resolved?
You want me to reply, Jeff, on that?
So yeah, yes, please, Josh. Yep.
Yeah, of course, both dams, they will have favorable impact on the flood issues, because as soon as we can create a lake, we can regulate the discharge of these two dams. So the risk of flooding is really minimal. Regarding City of Apia, in the way we have redesigned Weir number 2, which is very, very safe and is going to be controlled, dismantled at the end of this life period, there's no requirement of relocation of anybody in City of Apia, which is nearby. I can understand the concern, but there's no any requirement for relocation of people.
Okay, so I think this answers the next question, but you may want to add from Deyodi Soli. I hope I pronounced your name correctly. How many people will be displaced by the project when completed and operational?
For Weir number 2, there's no relocation required. For Upper Wawa, the client is still working on the relocation protocols for some people staying in the area.
From Benedicto Andres, will all construction equipment needed be coursed through mag drills?
So in terms of the construction methodology itself, so Prime BMD, we have a range of our own heavy equipment, but we also, of course, rely on all of our subcontractors and suppliers. But any queries in relation to that should come direct to Prime BMD. So we will, manage the way in which the work is delivered and build those relationships that are, really so important to our business, and manage those through the course of the project.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. The next question is from Catherine Talavera. Is the project on track in terms of its completion target? What's the current percentage of project completion?
So there were some delays early on, just in relation to some of the tree clearing permits, the extents to which we could access the site. Those are being overcome now, in terms of our endeavour to catch up and get back on track. So we do have a revised completion date currently that we're working to, but by and large, if we can reach the critical stage that we need to achieve, which is the height of the roller compacted concrete before the next wet season, then we will be in a good position for the completion of the project. But there's a fair bit of risk around that, and if we can't, then we'll have to reconsider the methodology and approach, so that we can ensure that it can be delivered on time. It's quite challenging in respect to the relationship between time and, of course, the wet season, as you'd appreciate.
Mm-hmm. From an anonymous attendee, was there a study done to say that the river system can accommodate the volume stated in the design?
Yes.
Well, if I can just answer quickly,
Please.
there was an extensive hydrological study undertaken by the project owner, the Wawa JVCo, over a 2-year period, and that was very detailed and also had peer review from specialist companies throughout the world in terms of their expertise. So we were very confident in relation to the amount of detail and the in-depth hydrological study that was undertaken, and certainly the design of the Weir is very efficient in terms of its ability to minimise the impact on the environment, but to ensure also that we're significantly increasing the bulk water capacity within the overall system.
Okay. There are some questions on employment. Who do they direct their applications to?
So that would be to our HR department. So we can actually send those details out potentially through Roger, I'm not sure, but certainly Ivan Santa Maria is our HR manager and would be welcoming of any inquiries in that regard.
Thank you. From another anonymous attendee, are you open to local purchase of supply and services, such as for automation and instrumentation? Again, who do they talk to?
So we're very much open to involvement of any local suppliers. We have an office that's well established now. Our project team is located. Josh, can you just outline the exact location?
Yeah, it's close to the project site in still close to the Tayabazan River. We have a full procurement office there, and welcome to give the details for any type of supply, local supply. Especially instrumentation and monitoring, he knows is something we do need.
Okay. A question on environmental impact from Pedro Moreno. How many trees were cut, for example? What was done in terms of recovering or restoring the lost retention capacity or minimizing resultant environmental risks?
Jocot, do you want to take that one?
Yeah. For this project, I think there were like 265 trees cut, plus an additional, I think, 150 trees earthballed. Obviously, this is a process that involved the DNR and then Penro doing a full inventory of trees, identifying the trees listed that needed to be either cut and or earthballed to ensure that whatever mitigation measures are in place that protect the environment. So we've had to obviously make commitments to provide like amount of seedlings and comply with all, I guess, LGU and DNR regulations on this. So this is just for the particular Weir 2 area. So that's pretty much it.
Another question: what accreditations are required to be a supplier or subcontractor?
Well, I mean, we have a pre-qualification system in place, and it's based around a demonstration of being able to commit to our safety program and protocols, and also financial capacity of the organisation itself and track record. So, but for us, we do need our contractors to have a PCAB license in place, and we would like to understand the history of the organisation. But we're very I guess understanding also of the need to grow the industry and to bring new players into the market. So we'd certainly work with suppliers and subcontractors that can show a genuine commitment to be able to bring them on and help them take the next step in their journey as well.
Thank you. From Anonymous, who do they speak to regarding the specs for vertical turbines, submersible pumps, and so on?
That's Mr. Josh on the line.
Yeah, still our procurement office. We have our, I don't know, in our website we have the address of our procurement office, Jeff.
Yeah, I'll do is I'll just send a message here to the panelists.
Yes. Some are very specific questions like, will you consider imported cement supply from Vietnam and Thailand?
So far, the local supply of cement is fine for us, especially on Weir number 2.
Mm-hmm. Okay. We are nearing our end time, or we're at our end time of 4 o'clock. So I should be wrapping this up unless there are remaining pressing questions. So if there are none, I don't see any more in the chat box and the Q&A box. I would just like to reiterate that we will be issuing certificates of attendance and that these may be requested from Joan Falcotella. And for the next speakers for the Philippine Infrastructure and Construction Club and the next Philippine Mining Club webinars, these will be announced on the website and the numerous social media accounts of the said clubs and in our newsletters. So now we would like to ask all of you to please turn on your cameras for a photo.
See, we have a few, but not everyone. Come on, don't be shy. Okay, I would just like to say a few words, and also Kevin's here. We'd like to thank our speakers. This is our second, as Kevin said, our second PICC. We're very pleased to have Prime BMD and Prime Infra as a keynote speaker. And we look forward to our next one. I think Kevin has a word to say about something that's very important coming up this year. Over to you, Kev.
Hello, everyone, and thank you for attending today. It was a really good talk, and I thank the speakers. I thank Prime BMD. Hope you all enjoyed it. This year is the company's second chance events consultancy to bring these events to you. It's our 10th anniversary. So hooray, happy 10th anniversary, and we hope to continue, even through the difficult times of COVID, to bring you more and more informative webinars. And we especially thank Patricia today for emceeing the event. Thank you all for attending, and we hope to see you again next time. Thank you very much.
And a special thanks to Mr. Jocot, de Dios, and Jeff, and Josh, all the way from Italy.
Thank you. Thanks
So
for your
thank
time.
you.
Thank you very much.
Thanks very much. Thank you.
Thank you.
And all have a good weekend.
Thank you.
And stay safe.
Have a good weekend, all.
You too. Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.